in the featherweight division between Chrisjhon and Rocky Juarez. It took place February 28th, their first fight in Houston. Let's take a look at what happened in the fight. Early on, Chrisjhon appeared to be applying his boxing skills effectively and took an early lead on the scorecards, winning 5 of the first 6 rounds against Rocky Juarez. What did you see happening in the fight, Emmanuel?
Well, that's Chrisjhon is just a busy fighter. He twists and pivots and starts punching all while he's doing it. And Juarez is basically setting up for power punches. And I think later in the fight, when he just started to, I guess, becoming a little bit more anxious and throwing more punches, he won. But he cannot sit down and try to wait on landing power punches because Chrisjhon is a very busy fighter. And this fight, Chris said he's in better shape and he won't fold going down the stretch as he did the first fight when he ended up in the draw.
It was a lively home crowd in Houston. Juarez was given credit for winning the late rounds, came on to gain the draw with Jhon. Let's take a look at CompuBox numbers from that fight, Max.
Well, you know, Paulie Malignaggi, before complaining about the treatment against Juan Diaz in Houston, used this fight as an example of a ripoff, where Chrisjhon clearly outboxed Juarez and should have won, as the numbers indicate. Didn't get the decision, though it should be said that Juarez fought valiantly and did come on late in the fight.
Tail of the tape now for Chrisjhon against former American Olympian Rocky Juarez. He was a member of our United States Olympic team in Sydney in 2000. A 1-year age advantage for Juarez, a 2.5-inch height advantage for Jhon. Arm length, a 1/2-inch advantage for Jhon, measured from the armpit to the end of the fist. They both weighed in at the featherweight limit of 126 pounds. They've both gone up 8 or 9 pounds unofficially overnight. Rules for our unofficial ringside scorer, Harold Letterman.
The Chrisjhon Rocky Juarez fight is scheduled for 12 rounds using the unified rules that you see on your screen. Jim, real quick, the 4 criteria that the judges will use to score each individual round: clean punching, effective aggressiveness, ring generalship, and defense, with a strong emphasis on clean, effective punching. Jim!
Now let's go to Michael Buffer for the official introductions.
Ladies and gentlemen, from the MGM Grand of Las Vegas, once again, Mayweather Promotions and Golden Boy Promotions, in association with Marquez Promotions and Samson Boxing, present this contest, sponsored by Tecate Cerveza con Carácter, AT&T and its new Viva Mexico wireless plan, Quaker State Real Durable Oil, DeWalt Power Tools, guaranteed tough, Affliction Clothing, and Southwest Airlines. Grab your bag, it's on. Sanctioned by the Nevada State Athletic Commission, the 3 judges at ringside scoring this bout: Adelaide Bird, Glenn Hamada, and Herb Santos. And inside the ring, your referee in charge of the action at the bell, Joe Cortez. And now, this is the rematch we've all been waiting for. 12 rounds of boxing for the WBA Featherweight Championship of the World. Fighting out of the blue corner, wearing green with red and white, official weight 126 pounds. Professional record, 28 victories, including 20 knockouts, against 4 defeats with 1 bout even. He is the fighting pride of Houston, Texas, the challenger, Ricardo Rocky Juarez. And fighting out of the red corner, wearing white with blue trim, official weight, also 126 pounds. From Semarang, Indonesia, here is the reigning and defending WBA Featherweight Champion of the World, Chris the Dragon Jhon.
All right, Chris. All right, gentlemen, we went over the rules in that dressing room. I expect a good, clean fight. Obey my commands at all time. Punches here are good. Any questions here? Any questions? All right, good luck, gang. Remember, I'm fair, but I'm firm. Touch him up.
Rocky Juarez has been very good on certain nights of his career against Marco Antonio Barrera, against Jhon in their first fight. But Chrisjhon's never lost in 44 pro fights, including a win against Juan Manuel Marquez. Can Rocky Juarez be great one night of his life because that's what it's going to take to get a win here.
Since his stellar amateur career and through his professional career, Emanuel Stewart, Rocky Juarez has been a very good fighter who seems to me to sometimes forget that his X factor is his big left hook.
Yep, and look at all his losses has been to top guys, but nevertheless, he sometimes seems to focus on doing it wrong. I thought the first fight, he spent too much time trying to punch to the body, and that was a mistake that he got behind because he never did effectively wear down Jhon. But for this fight, he said he's going to come out much more aggressive earlier.
It's very difficult to wear down Jhon, who is a slippery defender and a fighter with excellent footwork and brilliant ring generalship. Getting him out of his envelope is not easy.
And if you notice, when you start punching at him, either when he finishes up his punches, he finishes up moving off on an angle. Very seldom just going straight back.
And Rocky's got to worry about just punching at the envelope, Jim. Bust the envelope. And maybe the mohawk is an indication that he's trying to emotionally shake himself up, to start faster, to be a little less professional early in the fight and a little more passionate.
Indeed, trainers talk about it all the time. This is one of those nights when you hit the elbows, hit the gloves, hit the side, hit anything you can make contact with to try to disrupt Jhon.
And that's what Rockies do, because he's physically a compact, little strong guy, but you can't try to fight too intelligent.
Especially early in the fight for him. Later in the fights, he's come on, but he's given away too many rounds by that time.
Look at how Jhon throws a three-punch combination and immediately puts both hands up and moves away.
Moves away, particularly to the right a lot, which keeps Juarez out of position because he steadily moves out to the right a lot.
But he's moving toward Rocky's left hook.
Yeah, but Rocky isn't throwing his left hook.
Break out, come on, let him go. All right, you're holding, let's go.
Juarez has had a lot of tough luck. He took on Humberto Soto when nobody knew how good Soto really was. He lost his first fight against Barrera on a scoring change by the California State Commission. And he had gone to the dressing rooms thinking that it was a different result.
Break out.
In the second fight against Barrera, he was clearly outsmarted as he fought more or less the same way he had in the first fight. Barrera made significant and winning adjustments. Good uppercut from a distance by Jhon.
But it tells you how desperate the situation is for Rocky Juarez when someone like Emanuel Stewart sits there and says about a veteran pressure fighter, he went to the body too much. He can't fight too intelligently. The passion needs to come out early for Juarez.
And this fight is followed into the same pattern of the first fight, but Rocky's coming in, hesitating just a little bit, and Chrisjhon gets shots off and then slides off to his right. Ties him up, and therefore Juarez is gradually letting him get the scoring off. Favoring Jhon right away again.
No. If you have any thought of questioning the quality of Chrisjhon or his record, just consider that he has a win on his record. Some question it, but it's there. An official win over Juan Manuel Marquez back in Indonesia.
Right? Going that way, you still got to move your head, okay? All right? Now look, it was a good round, but look, he's fighting you right there. He's standing right there with you. Okay? This round, go to your left. If he starts running, then you go to your right, okay? But go to your left and use your jab for me, okay? And when you get it close,
That's beautiful, mate. Let it bring. You keep going the way you're going, all right? You keep going the way you're going. Look for the right hook to the ribs and the right hook to the head, all right? Beautiful stuff.
Here you see a perfect uppercut coming in for Chrisjhon, much like what we were saying should have been did in the last fight. When a guy's coming forward with his head, moving over his left foot, you can easily catch him with the uppercut. He doesn't see it because he's looking for punches to come on the top, on the side of his head.
CompuBox numbers from round one show you the problem for for Juarez. Chrisjhon was 12 out of 56 in round one. Decent, nothing great. But Juarez, only 5 out of 52. He simply couldn't find Jhon in the first round.
And I was listening to the instructions of Ronnie Shields, who's the trainer for Juarez, telling him what to do, to move to his left, because he notices that Jhon finishes up off the time, moving off to his right, and that would kind of cut down the distance a little bit. But right now, Juarez is falling into the pattern that he fell into the first fight.
Hard-working, dead-level honest Ronnie Shields. Excellent trainer and an excellent person.
Yes, he is.
Hard right hand by Juarez over the top. Best punch so far.
You know, we were talking about Arturo Gatti earlier in the night, comparing Michael Katsidis to him. And Chrisjhon, who's a slick boxer, a busy little boxer, not the most exciting, aggressive power guy in the world, has Thunder Gatti on his trunks in honor of the memory of Arturo Gatti.
Yeah, I noticed he had it on his robe also, and I noticed he's wearing Gatti's favorite color combination, blue and white also.
Everyone loved Gatti.
All right, break out, clean, break out.
In the ring and out of the ring, if you met him, even in person, he was always very charismatic, likable person.
Fighters who you would be surprised were fans of his based on their styles. Like I mentioned Paulie Malignaggi earlier and Chrisjhon, big Gatti fans. Everyone was a Gatti fan. Juarez working the right hand inside. Jhon tying him up and walking him back to the ropes. Jhon very busy with that jab, Emmanuel.
Juarez said that he learned from his loss in the first fight that he came on to draw, at least when he came on too late. So that's why for this fight he was going to come out earlier, faster. But at this stage he's been a little bit faster, but not that much. But when he punches, he does well.
But to get those shots off against a guy like Jhon, who, unlike a lot of fighters we see, puts combinations together so well, makes it more difficult, it seems.
But I may be wrong, but it seems like Jhon is leaning in himself a lot more, being more stationary than he was in the past. So this is a night for Rocky if he would just let the punches go.
And there was a good right hand from Jhon.
Yeah, but Jhon is leaning in. He's not moving as much as he did in the past to me.
Beautiful, mate. Beautiful round. Beautiful round. We need to get... What we need... When you see it's his turn, when you see he's going to come at you, move off a bit and then catch him with the jab as he moves in, all right? Yeah? Don't just stay there all the time. Move off a little bit and let him walk into your jab. Move off a little bit, let him walk in, step into your jab, all right? Keep popping that.
A combination with the hook, though, okay?
Right and break.
But look, what's wrong with the jab? Use the jab. The jab is working for you. Okay, the jab is down.
Through the second round, Chrisjhon is averaging 40 jabs thrown per round. He stepped it up a little bit in that round and landed 20 punches by CompuBox count as opposed to 12 in the first round. So far, Juarez has not succeeded in opening up that envelope and doing something which will change the rhythm of John's game.
I think also what Ronnie Shields him to is just to use his jab, really, which is something he doesn't use that much. And his jab works very effectively. It sets up things.
Emmanuel, you mentioned in the last round John's leaning in more tonight than you anticipated. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I mean, I guess after having that 44 fights, maybe you do slow down a little bit. But he is vulnerable tonight.
Because
much more vulnerable than I thought he was the first fight.
His trainer mentioned to us in the fighter meetings yesterday that they're working, it's a gradual process, but they want Jhon to develop more power so he's able to move up in weight the way Marquez has and obviously Pacquiao has.
But it's a lot of times you don't want to change your style, what's been working. If you can just add the punching power without making drastic changes in your style.
Incidentally.
But I don't think he ever will be a big puncher. I don't think that's going to be the case.
As he tries to portray himself as a more aggressive, more interesting fighter, isn't it fascinating that Jhon is the one who has chosen to honor Arturo Thunder Gatti tonight with his name on his trunks?
Especially considering the styles. But, you know, the style more, Rocky is more the style of a Gatti when you look at it.
Okay, and now I have to confess that I was away from the table at the moment when you guys apparently had this discussion in round two.
Jim, I think people figured that out when they heard me call a little action.
Gotcha.
The idea of trying to make I have a problem with Chrisjhon because he's got both names are first names. But anyway, Jhon is trying to change him to a puncher. I think it's kind of late when the guy's had 44 fights. You got to stick with what's been working. Just make sure he's in a little better shape.
But apparently one of us, someone in this group, delivered a spirited commentary down in Houston about how if he wanted to make a mark in this culture, he was going to have to be a more aggressive fighter. And yesterday his trainer and his manager were both saying, yeah, we agree. We're going to do it.
You know, speaking of names, Rocky Juarez, his dad names him Rocky after the aforementioned Rocky Marciano. We discussed him during the Katsides fight. And in this era of belts everywhere you look, there's a belt. You win a belt by accident. Rocky, who's a very good fighter, better than many belt holders, has never even won one of these fractional belts.
He attributes that to the fact that he's been fighting nothing but some of the best fighters of his era, which is right. Was true. Yep.
It's been a murderous featherweight era where he's campaigned his whole career.
Makes me like him better.
It does, against guys like Juan Manuel Marquez and Marco Antonio Barrera, and yes, Chrisjhon.
Almost makes me respect him more that he hasn't had one of those belts. He's legit. Juarez getting in a couple of more damaging blows here in round number 3.
Time.
One big left hook in the past 30 seconds.
Let him out slow. Look, Bob. You can score punches with your jab easy, okay? Give me some water. You hit him and hurt him with it. You threw the overhand right, hit him, but you didn't come back with the hook. You got to follow up with punches, okay? It's going to take a combination to do it, okay? But you got to punch in combinations when you're throwing them hard shots, okay? Remember, look. Go.
To move off a bit more instead of staying in front of him, okay? And when we do, we're going to jab and jab and jab, but we're going to bring the jab back faster. We're going to be faster, in and out faster, all right? We're not bringing them back quick enough. We're getting a bit too cute. I want them in and out, all right?
Well, one big left hook or no. Round 3 CompuBox numbers again heavily favor Chrisjhon. 24 out of 73. He threw 41 jabs in the round. Juarez only 9 out of 50. Increasingly, it becomes clear Juarez will have to do it with power or disruption. Not going to be able to outbox Chrisjhon. Harold, how do you have it so far?
Okay, so 29-28. 2 rounds to 1, Chrisjhon. You know, Jim, I gave Rocky Juarez that 3rd round. He landed a heck of a right hand over the top late in the round. But be as it may, he's just not doing enough. I mean, if the guy were more aggressive, meaning Rocky Juarez, he'd make these fights a lot closer. But he just gets outboxed constantly by Chrisjhon. Jhon keeps working that left jab, working the combinations, working to the body. As you see, moving, good ring generalship. Rocky gets inside and then just doesn't punch. 2 rounds to 1. Chrisjhon.
There was a tone in Jhon's corner in between rounds that sounded a little more concerned than the previous rounds. That Juarez was coming on a little last round.
Yeah, I'm looking at Jhon. He might be ahead, but he's not that overly impressive to me tonight. And if I was in his corner, I'd be a little worried too about going down the stretch, because the fight is going to be very close early. And if Juarez comes on strong at the end, it's going to be a big problem for Jhon.
Well, it seems clear who's the stronger guy. That's the advantage that Rocky has to try to exploit. He got in a good left hook to the body, but Jhon continues to work him from a distance with the jab and occasionally the right hand.
And I do see a difference in the leverage that John's getting on that right hand from a distance than in previous fights. He seems to be throwing a little harder.
He seemed to stun Rocky a few seconds ago, and also looked like Rocky's left eye is closing up. And
there's a good right hand by Jhon.
He's landed about 3 right hands this round.
Bring out.
So far, it's been another slow round for Juarez and another technician-like round for Chrisjhon.
Yeah, I think this is maybe Chrisjhon's best round. He's jabbing, he's smart, and he's found that even though Rocky holds that left hand up by throwing that kind of arching right hand over top, he's been able to penetrate and bring it over there. And he's been landing that pretty effective this round. And then he finishes up back with a jab.
In the 2000 Olympics, Juarez was a silver medalist at featherweight, and he's been a silver medalist at featherweight ever since then. And he's a silver medalist here tonight so far.
I think he fought one time at 130 when he fought Barrera, I think, for one fight.
Break out. Let's go. Come on.
Well, it's been 21 months since Floyd Mayweather listened to referees' instructions. Let's hear what Tony Weeks had to say to him tonight.
Do we have two mouthpieces?
Oh, yeah. Yes, we do.
Okay. If the mouthpiece comes out, continue to fight till there's a lull in the action. Come over to the corner, people. No water, no instructions. We put it back in, be ready to go again. Now, if I determine that you spit that mouthpiece out to gain any type of advantage, I'm going to warn you that and after that, I'm deducting points. Okay? Knockdowns, go to the first neutral corner, stay there till I tell you to come out. If you come out anytime during the count, I'll stop the count and send you back. Wait for me to tell you to resume the fight. If you inside and he's holding you with one hand, you have one hand free, you can punch with that one hand as long as in the legal area. But you cannot hold and hit. And when I tell you to stop, I want you to stop. Okay, are there any questions or concerns at this time?
Oh, no, not at all.
Okay, good luck to you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
All right.
Of course, Tony Weeks also delivered instructions in Juan Manuel Marquez's dressing room, but those instructions were en Espanol. Ever since Weeks, who speaks very proficient Spanish, made it through the hectic 12th round of the incredible battle between Diego Corrales and Jose Luis Castillo here 6 years ago, he has been rising in prominence among Vegas referees.
And gives instruction about what happens if you spit out the mouthpiece.
Always.
The last round was a very good round, I thought, for Chrisjhon. He seemed to set the pattern, and the fight now is moving just the way he would like to have it. He's really starting to put on a clinic to some degree.
Max, thank you for the correction. It was the 11th round in Castillo Corrales, not the 12th. And by the way, you said it was a great round last round for Jhon Emmanuel Stewart. He landed 25 punches to only 5 for Rocky Juarez by CompuBox count. A couple of body shots by Juarez. He'll need to do more of that.
And Chrisjhon is mixing up his right hand. He lands right uppercuts, then he throws that arching type, I call him right hand, that comes around the gloves. Then he goes right back to the jab, though, after everything. And
his footwork is so good and he's so confident in it that he'll throw an uppercut from a distance and simply step to the side and avoid the counter. What Chrisjhon clearly does not have is power.
No, but he's very, very technically sound. Can feel when you're about to throw punches. He knows how to avoid them. And then he places his punches very well. He doesn't waste punches.
He beats you to the punch as often as not.
Yeah, he can pretty much anticipate where your hands are going to be, and he knows how to punch between the gloves, around the gloves, whatever. And then he gets out, either ties you up right away before you can come back.
Get him out. Chris, get him out. Let's go. Come on, guys. Hey, come on, let's go. Come on, guys. All right, break out. Come on, both of you guys. Both of you guys, keep the punches out. Let's go. Break out. Come on, get those down top. Get him out. Come on, let's go. Break. Stop. Let's go. Hold that head, Chris.
Round 5 coming to a close so far. It is a clinical boxing match. And it appears that Rocky Juarez needs for it to become a fight. Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger seated at ringside. George Lopez not far away and very happy to see himself, obviously. I don't know if I've ever seen anybody that happy to see himself on the monitor. Yesterday's weigh-in here in Las Vegas produced a moment of surprise. After months of media acceptance of the notion that this fight was to take place at a catch weight of 144 pounds, Juan Manuel Marquez weighed in at 142. No surprise there. And then, without warning, Floyd Mayweather stepped onto the scale and weighed in at 146. Shocking because it had been agreed for months that this was going to take place at 144. After Mayweather weighed in at 146, it became clear that Wednesday, the Marquez camp, this past Wednesday, the Marquez camp had been informed Mayweather was not likely to make 144, and a new contract was written for the bout, which allowed for the overage and created, or actually sustained from the previous contract, a monetary payment to Marquez of, we are told, $300,000 per pound, meaning that Marquez collects $600,000 for the 2 pounds over 144 at which Mayweather weighed in. Mayweather is not allowing us to weigh him unofficially tonight, so we do not know at what weight he'll enter the ring. We do know that Marquez rehydrated overnight from 142 up to 148. Sometimes when a guy's coming up in weight, he does not gain a lot of weight overnight before the fight. The fact that Marquez did suggests that he wanted it to be that way as preparation to go 12 rounds.
I think that's a good indication, too, is a lot of the guys, as you say, when they're coming up, whatever they weigh on the weigh-in day, they come in the ring not much more than that, maybe the same. It's good, the fact that it seems like he's doing the normal thing and eating. And maybe, you know, he put on the weight to the point where he feels pretty comfortable with it this time. As compared to where he said he's been starving himself to make weight before rather than training for fights.
I find it odd that he put on 6 pounds because if it's 144, the stipulation of the contract, and he's 142, I don't, maybe he had a big meal, you know, but it just seems that he had no problem making the weight.
Max, I'm assuming that he put an intravenous needle into his arm and took glycogenic fluids or glycofluids overnight, and that's how he gained the 6 extra pounds.
It could be.
You know, that's something that very few people know in the general public, is that when they weigh the unofficial weigh-in the next night, they're not that strict. I mean, sometimes the guys come in with their pants on, tennis shoes, and they'll just say, get on the scales, and they'll call it off, and that can make a big difference.
And incidentally, I'm speculating when I say that he may have rehydrated intravenously overnight. I didn't see it. I don't know.
Well, you know, the interesting thing is usually a case like this would be a major competitive advantage for Mayweather, because if he never intends to make the weight and his opponent does, the opponent can be drained by making that weight. In this case, because it's a catchweight fight where Marquez is moving up, it doesn't seem to me that it's a huge competitive advantage for Mayweather. Marquez wasn't killing himself to make 144 pounds.
No, if there's an advantage, it is that Mayweather gets to fight at apparently the weight at which he wanted to fight and did not have to trim off another 2 pounds.
Right, in other words, he ostensibly made a concession when the fight was made to Marquez to maybe weaken himself a little by coming down, and then just ignored the concession.
Because Marquez's only recourse as of Wednesday would have been to say, okay, no fight. That means no millions. And as Jhon and Juarez continue to fight essentially the same fight we've been seeing. Earlier this evening, our Max Kellerman conducted an interview with Juan Manuel Marquez's trainer, Nacho Beristain, about the issue of weight. Here's what Beristain had to say.
Nacho, how do you feel about the fact that Floyd did not come in at 144 pounds, but instead at 146 pounds and then refused to take off the weight?
Me siento frustrado. Sé que sigue siendo para mí un gran atleta, pero es obvio que está preocupado y a lo mejor lo hicieron a propósito para asegurar más la posible victoria.
I'm a bit worried. I know he's a great athlete, but I think that maybe they did it on purpose to secure the victory.
What kind of an advantage do you think it will be?
El peso. Mayor peso, mayores posibilidades de victoria, pero bueno, vamos a tratar de evitar los choques fuertes y boxearle con inteligencia y tratar de eliminar esa ventaja que va a tener en el peso, porque hoy en la noche debe estar pesando 52.
It's more weight, more of an advantage, more chances for him to win, and we expect not to have those clashes, strong clashes, and we expect that now when he gets into the ring it'll be a 152 approximately.
How does this change what you tell Juan in the ring tonight?
Pues no, el plan de nosotros no lo vamos a cambiar por nada. Y la fe en que yo tengo que Juan, con su escuela, con su clase que tiene, choque con la mejor escuela del boxeo americano.
Our plan doesn't change. I know that Jhon has quality, has technique, and you know that the best that Jhon has will meet tonight in this battle against the best of American quality.
Thanks, Nacho.
We allowed that interview to sustain into this 7th round between Chrisjhon in the white trunks and Juarez in the green, partially because, as you can clearly see, Juarez hasn't yet found any dramatic change in tactics or strategy which will markedly alter what's going on in his battle with Chrisjhon. In fact, CompuBox numbers in this fight are becoming ridiculously one-sided. In the last round, Jhon was given credit for landing 27 punches to only 7 for Juarez. Harold, how do you have it through 6?
Okay, Jim, 5 rounds to 1. 59-55 Chrisjhon. You know, Jim, Chrisjhon is boxing a beautiful fight. Using that left jab, using combinations, the 1-2s, the left-right combinations, and then he's moving. Or he ties up Juarez. Rocky just not doing enough. Absolutely not busy enough. The issue with Rocky Juarez's mohawk came up at the rules meeting, and the executive secretary of the Nevada State Athletic Commission, Keith Kaiser, ruled that as long as he doesn't use a lot of hairspray, make it hard so it could do damage, it's okay. 5 rounds to 1, Chrisjhon.
Mohawk gate.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, Max, what do you make of your conversation with Berestein about the weight?
It's unusual for a trainer right before a big fight to admit that it could be a decisive advantage for the opponent. But as I mentioned earlier, so it seems to really truly bother Nacho. But as I mentioned earlier, it's not as though Juan Manuel Marquez had to melt down to the weight, and therefore Floyd has this advantage. It's simply that Marquez doesn't get the advantage of Floyd having to melt down.
We'll hear from Juan Manuel Marquez later about the same subject.
You know, and you compare it to Oscar De La Hoya, who had to melt down for Manny Pacquiao and came in at the weight that they agreed upon. And by the way, it hurt him, it seemed, in the fight.
Charles Barkley taking a break from constant improvements in his golf swing. Big fight fan. Here for almost all of the biggest and best fights in Las Vegas.
Okay, now listen. Rocky, look, you got to be first with this man. You understand? You got to dictate the fight, okay? But you got to go both hands now with him, okay? You're putting yourself in a bad corner right now. You had this man right.
CompuBox numbers through the 7th round. Chrisjhon has landed 155 out of 550 punches. That's 30%. Rocky Juarez is averaging 8 landed punches per round. 57 out of 351, 16%. So he's really just basically not on the scoreboard against Chrisjhon in this fight. And again, it's been a boxing match so far, and Juarez somehow has to make it a fight. Little left hook to the body inside by Juarez. That's been difficult to accomplish.
Juarez needed to do something differently than he's done in the past, and he hasn't been able to do that. Very difficult thing to ask a fighter to do at this stage in their career. But he needed to be a little more special than this so far to reverse his fortunes in these kind of fights.
Very similar to what happened against Barrera. First fight was close. Most people thought Juarez had won it down the stretch. He came in and fought the second fight the same way, and Barrera made adjustments that made him look like he wasn't there. I'm not saying that Jhon has made any significant adjustments. It appears to me, Emmanuel, he's just fighting his fight.
He's fighting his regular fight, but I was just watching Juarez when he threw a few jabs early. He did very well with him. It's simply the fact that he's been outworked. He doesn't punch enough. I mean, as we say, missiles, but he won't let them go. He's just holding them and holding them, holding them. You know, and at this stage, realizing you're getting behind on points, just let your punches go.
I see an improvement in Jhon's punching power, especially with the right hand.
I would say so too, and he's mixing them up too good. He's throwing the straight right through the center, then he throws a club in right, and then he throws sometimes the right uppercut. So he seems to be punching with a little more power.
You know, and guys, part of being a special fighter is making those kind of adjustments at this level. And Jim, as you mentioned, Marco Antonio Barrera is who he is, partly because he was able to do that sort of thing in the middle of his career. And Chrisjhon, you see here, making maybe that subtle adjustment, punching with more power here in the rematch. And Juarez, who's not quite been at that level, has not been able to do that.
Yeah, but Juarez has had enough big fights by now to know it. I mean, this career is going to the final stage with all those great fights he's had with the champions and the Olympics and stuff. He just doesn't let the punches go.
You know, you make a great point about Barrera, Max. Who can forget maybe the most profound adjustment of the last 15 years? What Barrera did to prepare for Prince Nassim Hamed and how he completely bamboozled Hamed in the ring.
And he was a young prodigy, Barrera, who was a face-first brawler. And he ran into Junior Jones eventually and found out you can't win at the very highest levels like that. And before the Hamed fight, came out a master boxer. Never seen a metamorphosis quite like that.
Well, earlier you heard Max Kellerman's conversation with Juan Manuel Marquez trainer Nacho Beristain about weight. Here now is Juan Manuel Marquez with Max.
Juan, how do you feel about the fact that Floyd weighed in not at the 144-pound catch weight, but at 146 pounds, didn't sweat off 2 pounds, and instead reportedly has paid you $600,000 as a penalty?
Bueno, nosotros estábamos conscientes de que él si se pasaba de peso tenía que pagar una cantidad de dinero, pero pensamos, nos habían dicho que él iba a llegar bien, que no iba a llegar pesado, y bueno, nosotros llegamos en el peso que queríamos llegar, y si él se pasó, pues es su problema, ¿no? Pero yo creo que sí va a ser un factor importante el peso arriba del ring, pero a nosotros nos tiene sin cuidado.
We knew that we expected for him to come into within the weight limit, but we thought he could come over a bit, but we knew that there were going to be penalties overall. That isn't a problem afterwards. We thought that the weight might be an issue, and that overall in the long run, it's not going to be an issue. Not going to be an issue. Not going to be the problem for us.
In your heart of hearts, when you see that he's 2 pounds over, but you make the $600,000 extra, are you happy about the extra money? Or do you feel that it's a competitive advantage for him that you would rather not have him enjoy?
No, yo creo que a mí me hubiese gustado que se hubiera respetado lo que se había acordado. Pero al final de cuentas él no lo hizo así. Yo creo que no le importó. Pero sí me hubiese gustado que hubiera pesado lo que se había acordado.
It was an agreed upon weight. Unfortunately, he didn't come up with the goods, if you will, and it would have been better, obviously, if he would come up with the weight, but obviously that wasn't the case.
How do you plan on compensating for that competitive advantage and size that he will enjoy?
Bueno, yo creo que con el boxeo, con técnica de boxeo, con inteligencia y con todas las ganas de querer ganar.
With boxing, with good technique, and with the will to win.
Thanks, Juan.
Once again, we allow the interview to sustain into this round because not much is changing in this fight, and we thought the information was important. Incidentally, Floyd Mayweather declined to do an interview with us tonight, just as he declined yesterday to meet with us privately, as most fighters do. That is, of course, his right and his privilege. In the last 3 rounds prior to this one, Chrisjhon outlanded Rocky Juarez 74-24 by CompuBox count. Gentlemen, as we come down the stretch of this fight, I'll include our viewers in this. We are coming into the happy time situation where once this is over, we're going to be rushing to the main event. That means no stand-up on camera for us. So as this fight concludes, unless something significant changes, we're going to begin the discussion of what goes on between Floyd Mayweather and Juan Manuel Marquez. And I'll begin that, Max, with you in the next round.
It's interesting that Marquez, who's never really made huge money in boxing. He's been paid well at times, but never really made the money commensurate with his position in the sport and his accomplishments, said he would have rather had Mayweather make weight than get the extra $600,000.
How much of the missed pesos for Marquez were the result of his hard luck and his coexistence with guys like Hamed and Barrera and Morales, and how much were the result of questionable decisions by him and his management?
I think there's some of both. It sounds like a cop-out answer, but Barrera was able to sustain his following even as he became a more technical boxer, because he built that equity, especially with the Mexican and Mexican-American fight fans, by being such an action-packed brawler early. Marquez was always a technical boxer, so he never engendered the same kind of passion that Barrera and Morales and some others did.
Now sit down and relax. Chris, breathe and relax. Hey,
Put the ice on his head.
we're going to summon all our energy here, Chrisjhon,
Get it on him.
because we're starting to look a little bit tired, all right? Hey,
You're holding your own self back. Don't let this man outwork you, though, okay? Look at me. I want both hands moving this round, okay? Look, dig. You gotta dig them shots, okay? Dig them shots.
Fight fan Mike Tyson on hand once again. Increasingly ubiquitous at the big fights here in Las Vegas. You know, my son Aaron Lampley once talked me into getting a temporary tattoo exactly like Mike's on my face. It wasn't me. Harold, how do you have it through 9?
Okay, Chip. 8 runs to 1, 89, 82, Chrisjhon. I mean, Jimmy's totally outboxing Rocky Juarez. Even when Rocky gets inside, he doesn't get busy and go to work. Chrisjhon keeps pumping that left jab, throwing combinations, moving beautifully. I mean, great ring generalship, and Rocky Juarez refuses to go to work. I mean, he just is not busy enough. 8-1, Chrisjhon.
All right, we're going to keep an eye on this, as you do. And once again, we'll break away from the discussion of Mayweather-Marquez if something changes in the essential flow of the action between Jhon and Juarez. But Max, let's start with this one. Floyd Mayweather comes back from 21 months off and takes, with no tune-up fight, a matchup against the man who currently ranks on almost all the expert lists as the number 2 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. Is it a brave risk for Floyd because Marquez is so good? Or is it another carefully chosen niche opportunity because Floyd is so much the bigger man?
The greatest indictment of Juan Manuel Marquez as an opponent tonight seems to be that Floyd Mayweather chose to fight him. The perception is that Mayweather avoids tough opposition. But the truth is that while Marquez is certainly the smaller man, he was at least the equal at 126, 130, and 135 pounds of Manny Pacquiao, the same guy Floyd is criticized for not fighting tonight. Marquez is a great fighter and a dangerous opponent. Yes, really a lightweight, but a lightweight whose chances should not be taken lightly. Jim, he's great.
And incidentally, it's worth noting that Pacquiao's promoter, Bob Arum of Top Rank, insists rather aggressively that no fight between Pacquiao and Mayweather will ever take place. There are few at ringside who believe that Arum can withstand the economic forces of the sport enough to make that stick if both fighters keep winning and get into position to fight each other.
We got it in your hands. Come on, Chris. Chris, get down. I'm out. Let's go.
A shorter way to say that is money talks. Right, Emmanuel?
That's right. And this is the most anticipated, I think, and desired fight in boxing today, regardless of what may be the fight. In fact, most people, when they found out I was coming out for this fight here, they was thinking it was the Pacquiao fight and Mayweather.
You see any dark cloud for Chrisjhon and the slight swelling around his eyes? Particularly the left eye, which seems to be closing up a little bit?
It could be, because they're fighting close where their head's going to be banging and whatnot. But I think at this stage of the fight, he could comfortably probably still make it through, even though it might be close near the end.
In the next round, Emmanuel, I'll ask you the key tactical questions about Mayweather and Marquez.
I these combinations together, okay? Look, it's not like this guy doing a whole lot. You understand? But listen, you got to work. You got to be first in there, okay? You have to be first. Look, you gotta start loading up on them shots. Sit down on your punches now, okay? But let them go. Just throw 4 or 5 punches in a row, and you'll see.
2 rounds to go. I want a round for Maria Luna, this one. I want this round for Maria Luna, all right? Hey, you understand me? You know Maria Luna? I want this round for her, okay? And what are you gonna do this round? You're gonna jab, you're gonna move, you're not gonna fight. You're gonna put that hard right hand in. I want this round for Maria Luna, all right? You gonna give it to me? Go. Come on.
Round 11 of a scheduled 12. Rematch of what was a controversial draw in February between Chrisjhon of Indonesia and Rocky Juarez of Houston. That fight took place in Houston. Here on more neutral turf, Jhon has been taking the measure of Juarez in seemingly every round, or maybe every round but 1 or 2, because of his superior boxing skill. Emmanuel, we already had the discussion about Mayweather being the larger man. Given that he's the larger man and that he tends to fight in a controlled technical style which emphasizes defense, what can the smaller man Marquez do to disrupt that?
Well, he's got to, as I had stated earlier, he has to apply pressure. He's got to put pressure, but he can't get careless and throw punches where they're not landing like so many guys do with Mayweather, because Floyd is a master at using his shoulders and elbows to block and deflect punches and then get tired. But the biggest thing that I'm concerned about is the speed, to see how the hand speeds match up when they come out. I think that even though Marquez is a smaller guy, he's a very balanced out technical fighter, and he's capable of punching, boxing, makes great adjustments and all of that, but I think the size is still what pushes me to favor Floyd a little bit.
In a scouting report for the fight, Oscar De La Hoya said, looking back at his fight with Mayweather, he realized that Mayweather had trouble with 2 things. A, his jab. B, combinations when he would throw more than just 2 and get to 3 or 4 or 5 punches. I don't know about the jab, but certainly throwing punches in bunches is one of Marquez's greatest strengths. Does it enhance his chances to win?
I think so. I think the jab statement was true, but Marquez would never hardly be as effective as the Oscar was. Oscar was a 5'10" guy compared to, but Oscar negated the height by bending forward and then used the jab as good as he could have. But, you know, throwing punches is good, but he's got to be in great shape, because you're throwing those punches, he's going to only land maybe 1 out of every 8 with Floyd, and he's going to have to be in shape to not be tired in the last part of the fight. And
final question, Emmanuel. Because Manny Pacquiao has been putting people on their backs spectacularly, does Mayweather feel any underlying pressure to produce a knockout tonight?
I think he's going to feel that. And and going down to the last part of the fight, Floyd, I think with his natural physical size, forget what they weighed in. He's a bigger guy. And that he has that good springing left hook that he throws where he really lunges with it. And I think in the right hand leads, he has a good chance of scoring a knockout still.
Max, what's happening in Chrisjhon and Rocky Juarez?
I mean, Juarez, as he did in the first fight, started to land some heavy shots to the head. Of course, here it is in the 11th round, and he's way behind on the scorecards. And you can see Chrisjhon's face showing the evidence of those shots.
Jhon looks just a tiny bit weary to me, but it appears if he stands up, he probably wins.
Yeah, it looks like they both stepped on each other's feet, and even though Juarez kind of stumbled backwards, I don't think anyone was really hurt from a blow.
Now, Max, you're the hip-hop expert, so I will leave it to you to tell me the current artistic moniker of that man. Is he Puffy Combs? Is he P. Diddy?
I mean, I always think of him as Puff, just because that's how he came up, Jim. But you know, not that I would have called Muhammad Ali Cassius Clay, but I think it's a little bit different. I'd like to call him whatever he wants to be called.
Either way, he's at ringside tonight in a star-studded crowd.
I still think of him as Puffy, because that's how Biggie Smalls used to refer to him, Jim.
Chris, 1 round you do it for Maria Rose.
Look, go for broke. You gotta go for broke, okay? Look, both hands. Just let both hands go, okay? Come on, man. Let's go. Let's go. Both hands. Listen.
How often have we seen Ronnie Shields desperately imploring a fighter to do what he wants him to do to turn around a lost fight?
And he's saying the right thing. But, you know,
as always.
From the first round on, yeah.
Harold Letterman gave that round to Juarez, narrowing the margin on his scorecard to 7 points as we go to the final round. Jhon's left eye in particular is almost swollen shut, which could give Rocky Juarez some right-hand opportunities.
Dramatically, I think the more interesting story coming into this fight was, could Rocky Juarez top what he did last time, where he got a draw he probably didn't deserve, and actually beat the top featherweight in the world and win the title? But it's turned out to be, so far, what it was more likely to be, which is a continuation of the Chrisjhon story. And the Chrisjhon story is a story of a guy with 44 professional fights, wins, no losses, wins over Marquez, and it looks like Juarez now twice. And, the dominant position that he enjoys now in the featherweight division is something that he's earned.
44 wins, no losses, 2 draws.
Right, but he's never lost, and one of the draws was to Juarez, and another was a technical draw early in a fight in 2004.
So in other words, he's really functionally probably 45-0. If in fact you agree with the decision in his win over Marquez in Indonesia.
Where you could easily say Jhon actually won that fight, but Marquez was deducted twice for low blows. And you imagine that without that, in a neutral site, maybe Marquez gets that decision. But it's certainly, Jhon may have outfought him anyway. I mean, it was a close fight.
Well, let's put it this way. Since that fight, Jhon has made certain that everyone understands whatever happened, it was no fluke. He has proven his quality above that stage now.
And he's the class of the division.
Oh! And he almost goes down on a left hook. 30 seconds to go. Juarez must recognize now he has a chance. Jhon was wobbled, badly, barely stood up. You cannot be saved by the bell in this round.
20 seconds, Jhon.
And a wobbly Chrisjhon, unbeaten in 46 fights. Juarez suddenly with a chance. Jhon's just holding on.
8, 7, 6, 5.
Oh my gosh. The bell seemed to ring a second or two early, but Jhon holds on and survives. Ronnie Shields is so thrilled that his fighter rallied that he picks him up. So a rousing finish to what had been a relatively uneventful fight up to that moment.
The clock that I was watching seemed that the round stopped 5 seconds early.
Or 3. I think it was more like 2 or 3 seconds early, but it definitely appeared to me that the bell came prior to the end of our clock. On the other hand, was it an official clock? Let's see the stagger again, Max. We're going to see the little left hook inside that seemed to wobble Chrisjhon. Boom. And there, he almost went down.
If this isn't the story of Rocky Juarez's career,
isn't it though?
Almost.
So close. But as you said it so well, Max, an Olympic silver medalist in Sydney in 2000 and a featherweight silver medalist ever since. Wins the 11th and 12th rounds here, as he did in Houston earlier this year, but seemingly without the same effect. Our judges tonight, Adelaide Bird of Nevada. 44 title fights, had Pacquiao ahead of De La Hoya by a rousing margin at the time of the stoppage, or at the time De La Hoya gave up the ghost on his stool. Glenn Hamada, similarly experienced. Margarito ahead of Cotto by a point. All those scores were within a point. One was even. And Herb Santos of Nevada just coming up. This is his first notable fight.
No truth that in Texas they already gave Juarez this decision, Jim.
Gail Van Hoy, not to besmirch the reputation of any one judge, Mr. Van Hoy is not the only one to have turned in scorecards in Texas, which have been questioned over the years. Let's go to Michael Buffer and find out who won it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we go to the scorecards. Glenn Hamada, 114-113. Adelaide Bird, 119-109. Herb Santos, 117-111. All to the winner by unanimous decision. And still, WBA Featherweight World Champion, Chris the Dragon Jhon.
Largely Mexican-American crowd, many of them here to support Juan Manuel Marquez, unhappy with the result against Juarez. And you see the CompuBox numbers that show Jhon dominating the fight numerically, landing 155 more punches, throwing 395 more punches, and landing at a significantly higher percentage. Most punches total ever landed against Rocky Juarez by Chrisjhon in this fight. Power punches, and you know, it's a little bit of a stretch to call what Jhon does powerful, but nevertheless, he lands 115 more of the punches that bear that description, meaning anything other than a jab.